Hi and welcome. You are listening to Listen and Relax. Sit back and enjoy these Am I the Asshole stories. If you want us to continue making these videos, please let us know in the comments what you think about the stories and if we should continue. Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated when we post new exciting stories. These stories are all based on true stories. Thank you for listening. Refusing to honor my dad's lifelong rule after my parents' divorce. Let me take you back a few years. My parents' divorce was messy, like really messy. My dad claimed my mom cheated, but there was no evidence and my mom denied it. Honestly, their marriage was a ticking time bomb. They were just incompatible. But my dad took the divorce harder than anyone expected. He became bitter, resentful, and frankly, a little controlling. After the divorce, my dad laid down a rule that felt more like a decree from a king than a request from a parent. He said, "You and your sister are never to meet or interact with any potential partner of your mom's. Ever." He made it clear he didn't want anyone else taking the role of dad. At the time, my sister and I were young, and we didn't want to rock the boat, so we went along with it. But deep down, it felt wrong. Fast forward to now. I'm 25. My sister is 22. We're adults. We have our own lives, our own relationships, and our own futures to think about. But my dad, he's still holding on to that rule. In fact, he recently doubled down. He told me point blank that he expects us to follow this rule for the rest of his life. Let that sink in. Even when I'm 40, married, with kids of my own, I'm not allowed to meet someone my mom has been with for years. Someone who might make her happy. And if I do, he said I'd stop being his daughter, and he'd cut me out of his life entirely. I get it. Divorce is hard. Feeling replaced is hard. But this feels like control. It feels like he's trying to dictate not just my mom's life, but mine too. And I can't live like that. So I told him no. I told him I'm not willing to follow this rule forever, and if he chooses to cut me off for that, it's on him, not me. He didn't take it well. He called it a lack of principles and said I'd be the one responsible for ending our relationship. But here's the thing. I love my dad. I don't want to lose him, but I also can't let him control my life like this. It's not fair to me, to my sister, or to my mom. So I'm left wondering, am I the asshole for standing my ground, for refusing to let this rule dictate my life any longer, or is my dad the one who's gone too far? What do you think? Should I have honored my dad's wishes to keep the peace, even if it meant sacrificing my own autonomy? Or was I right to draw the line and say enough is enough? Walking out of the airport, when I saw my husband's mom standing there with her luggage. I, 30F, have never had the best relationship with my husband's mom. From day one, she made passive-aggressive comments, constantly comparing me to other women she thought were better for him. Then, suddenly, she switched tactics, showering me with over-the-top praise. So much so that it felt fake. It only got worse when she started copying me, even dyeing her hair purple just like mine. When people pointed out how ridiculous it looked, she blamed me, accusing me of setting her up to be mocked. Still, I tried to keep the peace. But things escalated when my husband and I planned a long-awaited vacation. I saved up for the trip, handled all the arrangements, and my husband was only responsible for booking the tickets. His mother, of course, wanted to tag along. When I said no, she threw a tantrum. She begged, guilt-tripped, and even threatened to call the police with a false complaint to stop us from going if she couldn't come. I was furious that my husband even told her about our plans, but he assured me he wouldn't let her ruin it. Things got quiet after that. Too quiet. On the day of our flight, we arrived at the airport, and I noticed my husband scanning the crowd like he was looking for someone. Then there she was, standing in the waiting area, luggage in hand, his mother. My entire body went cold. My husband rushed over to hug her, acting as if nothing was wrong. Without saying a word, I turned around and walked straight out of the airport. I refused to be part of this betrayal. My husband chased after me, yelling that I was overreacting. He argued that his mom was already there, so we might as well just let it go. I told him he could go on the trip with his mother. I was going home. When I got home, I sobbed into my dog's fur, overwhelmed by emotions. An hour later, my husband stormed in, yelling and calling me pathetic and spiteful for ruining the trip. He blamed me for leaving, for not just dealing with it. To make things worse, he called my famother-in-law, telling them I was the reason the vacation was canceled. My famother-in-law agreed that I should have just sucked it up and enjoyed the trip anyway. Was I really overreacting? In the meantime, the situation has spiraled. I took some time to reflect and realize something painful. I've been making excuses for my husband's behavior for years. His mother has always treated him like he's the golden child, and he's never questioned it. Most of his siblings have cut him off because of her favoritism. I should have seen the red flags sooner. When I tried to talk to him about the airport incident, he still blamed me. He refused to acknowledge his betrayal. I told him I needed space and that I'd be staying with my sister for a while. His reaction? He opened the door and told me to leave immediately. That was the moment it all became clear. I was never going to come first in this marriage. I packed my things, took my dog, and left. He sent me one final message, claiming I was the one choosing to end our marriage. But in reality, he made that choice the moment he put his mother's feelings above mine, over and over again. Now, I'm starting to see my options clearly. Maybe this isn't just about a ruined trip. Maybe it's about a ruined marriage. Offering two different kinds of cake at our wedding. My husband, Josh, 29I, 27F, got married a few weeks ago. For the most part, the feedback from our wedding was positive, but we recently found out that people have been talking behind our backs about the cake. Originally, we planned for a small wedding at a resort, but when we received a generous financial gift, we decided to expand our guest list to include second cousins, their kids, and friends we don't get to see often. We were on a budget, so we had to make some practical decisions. For our cutting cake, the one for pictures, we chose an elegant high-end cake, but we reserved it for our immediate famother-in-law, our pastor, who flew in from out of state and is vegan, and a few close members of the wedding party. To keep things fair, we boxed it up for them to take home so no one would feel left out watching them eat something different. For everyone else, we provided two delicious sheet cakes. One was classic vanilla with buttercream rosettes, and the other was a pineapple chocolate chunk, which we thought would be a fun nod to Josh's famother-in-law since they spend a lot of time in Florida. We were having too much fun at the wedding to notice anything unusual, but later, we saw that a lot of full slices of the pineapple cake had been left untouched on people's plates. And then we heard the gossip. Apparently, Josh's famother-in-law didn't like the cake at all, despite us choosing it specifically with them in mind. We even saw a text from his uncle, not meant for our eyes, mocking the choice. It stung. Now we're torn on how to handle it. We tried to be thoughtful while working within our budget. There was a full dinner, 3 kinds of cheese, including Monterey Jack, and an open bar that stayed open late. Was a cake really enough to make people talk about us this way? We feel like their reaction is unnecessarily mean, but maybe we should have just gone with one universally safe flavor. Did we screw up? Going too far to fight my boyfriend's medical bill? It all started when my boyfriend had an accident and had to go to the ER. A few weeks later, the bill arrived, $5,000, after insurance. I was furious. I've dealt with ridiculous medical bills before, so I offered to fight it for him. He said yes, probably thinking I'd make a few calls and that would be it. But I had other plans. First, I had him authorize me to handle his bill and access his medical records. Then I got an itemized bill and started comparing the prices to the fair market rates. Spoiler alert, they were charging 7 times the national average. I called billing, but they said they only collect payments. I'd need to talk to admin. So, I spent hours bouncing around a call center, getting nowhere. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. I Googled and LinkedIn stalked the hospital's board of directors and upper management. I found 30 emails. CEOs, directors, investors, you name it. Every day, I sent a few emails, working my way up the chain. My emails got longer and more detailed, outlining how they were overcharging and how their staff had failed to address the issue. I CC'd more and more people, including outside investors, demanding a written justification for their outrageous billing. And guess what? It worked. The bill went from 5,000 to 5,000 to 26. Yes, you heard that right. $26. I was thrilled. I told my boyfriend, and at first, he was over the moon. He hugged me, called me a Christmas miracle, and said I'd saved our holiday plans. But then, he asked how I did it. I handed him my phone, and he started scrolling through the emails. His face went from curious to stressed to outright horrified. He said I'd gone way too far. He thought I'd just call billing or something normal. Not internet stalk every executive and investor at the hospital. He said I'd basically harassed them into dropping the bill. I was furious. I just saved us $5,000, made it possible for us to have a nice Christmas, and he was mad at me. He said I'd crossed a line, that I'd been too aggressive. But honestly, I don't think I did anything wrong. I fought for us. I got results. So, am I the asshole for going too far? Was I wrong to take such an aggressive approach? Should I have stuck to normal methods, even if it meant paying thousands more? Or was I right to do whatever it took to get the bill reduced? Doing weird bathroom poses to my mother-in-law. All right, picture this. You're living your life, minding your own business, and then out of nowhere, your mother-in-law comes to stay with you for a few weeks while her house is being renovated. You've never had an issue with her before, but then something strange starts happening. Your mother-in-law keeps accidentally walking in on you while you're in the bathroom. At first, it's a little unsettling, but hey, people make mistakes, right? So you brush it off. But after the second time in 1 week, you're starting to get the feeling this isn't as innocent as it seems. She barges in, says, "Oops, sorry," and then quickly closes the door. Now, for most people, that would be a red flag. And you're not one to stay quiet, so you try talking to your husband about it. Now, this is where things get really interesting. When you bring it up to him, he totally dismisses your concerns. His response? He actually says, "So what if she accidentally saw you naked? She's fey mother-in-law." What? Fey mother-in-law or not, that's a major invasion of privacy. But that's not even the worst part. Your husband's reaction? He just ignores the problem entirely. No real effort to stop this behavior. You do what you can. You don't use the bathroom lock because it triggers some childhood trauma you have about being locked in a room. Thanks, brother. And you try to keep calm. But the mother-in-law keeps showing up at the most inconvenient times. At this point, you're convinced this isn't just an accident anymore. She's doing it on purpose. And instead of getting more frustrated, you come up with a pretty creative solution. Here's where things take a hilarious and awkward turn. Instead of just leaving the bathroom door unlocked and waiting for her to barge in, you start setting up weird, awkward poses for her to walk in on. We're talking standing on the toilet, striking a ballet pose, or just standing there facing the wall with your hands up, like you're channeling some strange ritual. Totally outlandish, totally weird, and completely clothed. And guess what? You start to notice her walking in with a look of pure confusion on her face as she tries to figure out what in the world you're doing. You can't help but laugh. It's like a weird little game at this point. And let's be real, it's a bit hilarious to see someone that uncomfortable. But of course, things don't stay funny for long. The mother-in-law tells your husband that she thinks you're practicing rituals in the bathroom. Of course, you immediately clear things up and explain that you're just trying to make her feel as awkward as she made you feel. But then your husband flips out. He's furious. He says you're being childish and that you should have just locked the door like a grown-up instead of playing mind games with his mother. Now, you're left sitting there, feeling like you've done something wrong. He insists that you owe her an apology, especially before she leaves to go back home. So, here's the big question. Are you the a-hole for doing these weird bathroom poses to make your mother-in-law uncomfortable, or did she get what she deserved for repeatedly violating your privacy? The wristband mix-up. Jane sat on the edge of her bed, the crinkling sound of the Snickers wrapper filling the quiet room. She glanced at the clock, 5:30 p.m. Richard was still at work, and the twins were in their room, likely engrossed in one of their endless games. At 5 months pregnant, Jane's cravings had become almost unbearable, and today, the urge for a Snickers bar had won out. She knew it was risky. Maria, her stepdaughter, had a severe nut allergy, but Jane had been careful. She only ate the candy in private, far from the kitchen or shared spaces, and she always washed her hands afterward. It was her little secret, a small indulgence in an otherwise chaotic life. As she took a bite, the sweet caramel and peanuts melting in her mouth, the door creaked open. Jane froze, her heart skipping a beat. Standing in the doorway was Isabel, or so she thought. The girl wore the bright pink wristband that Isabel always had on, the one that distinguished her from her twin sister Maria, who wore purple. The wristbands were a family rule, a way to avoid confusion, especially since Jane struggled with face recognition due to her autism. The system had worked for years, and Jane trusted it completely. "Hey, Isabel," Jane said, quickly hiding the Snickers bar behind her back. "What's up?" The girl tilted her head, her eyes narrowing playfully. "What are you eating?" Jane hesitated. She knew she shouldn't share the candy. Nut products were strictly off limits in the house. But Isabel didn't have an allergy. And besides, the girl looked so curious, so innocent. Maybe one small piece wouldn't hurt. "It's a Snickers bar," Jane admitted, holding it out. "Want a bite?" The girl grinned and nodded, taking a small piece. Jane watched her chew, a pang of guilt tugging at her chest. She knew she shouldn't have done it, but it felt like such a small, harmless moment of connection. But then, the girl's face twisted in discomfort. She clutched her throat, gasping for air. Jane's stomach dropped. This wasn't Isabel. This was Maria. Panic surged through Jane as she realized the twins had swapped wristbands as a prank. The pink wristband on Maria's wrist was a cruel twist of fate. Jane's mind raced as she grabbed the EpiPen from the drawer and administered it with trembling hands. She scooped Maria into her arms and rushed to the car, her heart pounding as she sped toward the emergency room. The hours that followed were a blur. Maria stabilized, thank goodness, but the fallout was immediate. The twins' mother, Richard's ex-wife, arrived at the hospital in a fury. "How could you be so careless?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the hallway. "You know Maria has an allergy. Why would you even bring nut products into the house?" Jane felt the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. "I didn't know it was Maria," she stammered. "She was wearing Isabel's wristband. You thought wrong," the ex-wife snapped. "This is your fault." Richard stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "Jane didn't do this on purpose. Maria is old enough to know better than to take food without asking, and the twins shouldn't have been playing pranks like that." But the damage was done. The family was fractured, and Jane was left questioning everything. Had she been careless? Should she have known better? Her autism made it hard for her to recognize faces, and she relied heavily on the wristbands to tell the twins apart. She had tried so hard to keep Maria safe, but it hadn't been enough. As the days passed, Jane couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. She replayed the moment in her mind over and over, wondering what she could have done differently. Should she have never brought Snickers into the house? Should she have double-checked the wristband? Or was this just a tragic accident, a perfect storm of bad luck and innocent mistakes? The tension in the house was palpable. The ex-wife demanded that Jane's interactions with the girls be restricted, while Richard stood by his wife, insisting that Jane had acted in good faith. The twins, meanwhile, seemed to sense the gravity of what had happened. They stopped swapping wristbands and became more cautious, but the incident had left a mark on all of them. One evening, as Jane sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, Richard sat down beside her. "You're not a bad person, Jane," he said softly. "This was an accident, a terrible, horrible accident, but an accident nonetheless. We'll get through this." Jane nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She wanted to believe him, but the guilt still lingered. She knew she would carry this moment with her for a long time, a reminder of how fragile life could be, and how even the smallest decisions could have far-reaching consequences. In the end, the family began to heal, slowly but surely. They established new rules: no more pranks with the wristbands, no nut products in the house at all, and clearer communication about Maria's allergy. Jane, though still haunted by what had happened, vowed to be more vigilant, to double-check everything, no matter how small. And as she felt the baby kick in her belly, she whispered a promise to herself. She would do everything in her power to protect her family, no matter what it took. The guest room dilemma. The text message popped up on my phone just as I was finishing dinner. It was from my sister Claire. Hey, can I stay with you and Mark for a month or two? The divorce is finally done, and I need some time to figure things out. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. On paper, it sounded simple enough. My sister needed a place to stay, and I had a guest room. But the reality was far more complicated. Claire and I had always been close, but over the years her behavior around men had made me uneasy. She had a way of turning on the charm, of leaning in a little too close, of laughing a little too loudly. She called it being friendly, but I'd seen her cross lines with guys who were already in relationships. It wasn't just my imagination. I'd seen the way her eyes lingered, the way her hand would brush against an arm or a shoulder, and now she wanted to move in with me and my husband, Mark. I glanced across the table at Mark, who was scrolling through his phone, oblivious to my internal turmoil. He was the kind of guy who saw the best in everyone, the kind who would give Claire the benefit of the doubt without a second thought. But I wasn't so sure. Our apartment was small, with thin walls and little privacy. The idea of Claire living with us, even temporarily, made my skin crawl. Claire wants to stay with us for a while, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Mark looked up, his brow furrowing. Oh, well that's fine, right? She's your sister. I don't know, I admitted. I'm not sure it's a good idea. Mark shrugged. It's just for a month or two. She's going through a tough time. We can handle it. I wanted to believe him, but the knot in my stomach only tightened. Later that night, I called Claire to talk it over. I'm really sorry, I said, choosing my words carefully, but I don't think it's a good idea for you to stay with us. Our place is tiny, and I just don't think it would work out. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Are you serious? Claire finally said, her voice sharp. I'm your sister. I'm literally going through the worst time of my life, and you're turning me away? It's not that simple, I said, my voice rising. I just don't think it's a good idea. I can help you with a deposit for a short-term rental, though. I'll even help you look for places. Claire laughed, but it was bitter, devoid of humor. Wow, I can't believe this. You're really going to abandon me when I need you the most? What's the real reason, huh? Are you scared I'm going to steal Mark or something? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. That's not fair, I said, my voice trembling. I'm just trying to set boundaries. This is my home, and I need to feel comfortable in it. Boundaries? Claire shot back. Or paranoia? You've always been jealous of me. Admit it. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. Was she right? Was I being paranoid? I thought about the times I'd seen her flirt with guys who were taken, the way she'd always brushed off my concerns. Maybe I was overreacting. She climbed the ladder fast and is now managing 5 locations. She's successful, independent, and about to buy her second house. Meanwhile, the rest of us are still struggling. Our mom is behind on rent, and I'm barely making ends meet. But when Mom asked Emma for help, she refused. Her reasoning? If I could do it, so can you. That's when I snapped. I told her the truth, at least the truth as I see it. The only reason you're where you are is because you were a rich family's charity case. They handed you opportunities the rest of us never had, and now you act like you're better than us. The room went silent. Emma's face turned red, and she stormed out. She hasn't spoken to me since, and now she's refusing to help any of us. Was I wrong to say what I said? Maybe. But here's the thing. I'm tired of watching her act like she pulled herself up by her bootstraps when the rest of us are still stuck in the mud. Let's rewind a bit. Emma's success didn't come out of nowhere. Sure, she worked hard, but let's not pretend she didn't have a massive leg up. That wealthy family didn't just give her hand-me-downs, they gave her a life. They opened doors for her that most people never even get to see. And while I'm happy for her, it's hard not to feel bitter when she acts like the rest of us just aren't trying hard enough. When Mom asked for help, it wasn't for anything extravagant, just enough to keep a roof over her head. But Emma's response was cold. You need to figure it out on your own, she said. I did. That's when I lost it. I told her exactly what I thought, that she didn't do it on her own, that she had help, a lot of help, from people who had the means to give her a leg up. And now that she's in a position to help her own family, she's turning her back on us. Since our argument, Emma hasn't spoken to me. She's made it clear that she's done helping any of us, financially or otherwise. Part of me wonders if I went too far. Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. But another part of me thinks someone needed to say it. She can't keep acting like she's completely self-made when the rest of us are still struggling. Letting my son's girlfriend sleep in my daughter's bed. Picture this, a cozy family home during winter break. 2 adult kids back from college, a boyfriend in the mix, and a sleeping arrangement that sparked a full-blown family drama. Sounds like the plot of a Netflix series, right? Well, this is my life, and now I'm wondering if I'm the villain in this story. Let me set the stage. I have 2 kids, Donna, my 21-year-old daughter, and Austin, my 19-year-old son. Both live at home, but spend most of their time on campus. Austin has been dating his girlfriend Bridget for almost a year. Early in their relationship, Bridget stayed over once while Donna was away. No big deal. Bridget slept in Donna's room, Austin stayed in his, and everyone was happy. Fast forward to this winter break. Both kids were home, and Bridget needed a place to stay for a few days before her dorm reopened. Austin asked if she could crash with us. I agreed, but here's the catch. We don't have a guest room, just my bedroom, Austin's room, and Donna's room. Austin mentioned that he and Bridget now share a bed, but his twin bed would be way too small for both of them. Donna has a full-sized bed, so I suggested a temporary room swap. Donna would sleep in Austin's room, and Austin and Bridget would take hers. I even promised to wash the sheets afterward. But Donna wasn't having it. She was visibly upset and asked why Austin couldn't just sleep on the couch. I told her it was only for a few days, and since Austin and Bridget wanted to share a bed, this made the most sense. Donna reluctantly agreed, but I could tell she wasn't happy. Bridget arrived, and things seemed fine at first. But that night, Bridget went to bed early, and Donna pulled Austin aside in the kitchen. I couldn't hear the start of their conversation, but suddenly, Austin started yelling, "Shut up! Why would you say that?" before storming into the living room. He loudly announced he'd never invite Bridget back if everything's such a problem. When I asked what happened, Austin explained that Donna had asked him not to have sex with Bridget in her bed. He claimed he had no intention of doing that and accused Donna of being weird and trying to cause trouble. Donna, on the other hand, said she had purposely tried to talk to Austin quietly to avoid a scene and hadn't said anything to Bridget. She also pointed out that it wasn't an unreasonable request, given that she knew Austin and Bridget were sexually active. I told Donna she didn't need to make such a big deal since I'd already promised to wash the sheets. But Donna was hurt. She felt like her boundaries were being ignored, and she ended up staying with a friend for the rest of break. Now, school is back in session, but Donna is barely responding to my calls or texts. Austin told me Bridget overheard the argument and now feels uncomfortable being in our house or around Donna. My husband thinks Austin caused the scene by yelling and that Donna wasn't out of line for making her request. He also said I should never have let Bridget stay in the first place, making my husband leave work to bring me my keys. Imagine this, you wake up feeling awful. Your head is pounding, your throat feels like sandpaper, and you've got back-to-back work meetings lined up. All you want is to run to the chemist for some medicine and pick up a book you've been waiting for at the library. But there's one problem. You're locked in your own house. Again, this is my life. And it's all because of my husband's habit of forgetting, or maybe ignoring, the things I say. Let me explain. I work from home, which means I'm always here to unlock the front door when my husband gets back from work. But the few times I've needed the car, I've discovered he's taken the house keys, attached to the car keys with him. That means I can't leave the house, and I can't drive anywhere. It's happened more than once, and every time I've gotten more and more frustrated. To solve the problem, I made sure we have 2 sets of keys. The second pair is supposed to stay on the console table for emergencies. But guess what? My husband started keeping the emergency keys in his work bag. So if he took the car, I was once again trapped in the house. The breaking point came recently when my family came over. They stood outside a locked door while I frantically searched the house for his work bag. It was embarrassing and infuriating. Today was the last straw. I woke up feeling terrible, feverish, achy, and just plain miserable. I needed to run to the chemist between meetings and pick up that library book. But once again, my husband had taken the car keys. What made it worse was his calm, apologetic tone on the phone. He said he was sorry, but that just made me angrier. How many times had I told him this was a problem? What if there had been a real emergency? I lost it. I demanded he come home immediately and bring me the keys. He started apologizing again, saying he had a meeting at work about to start, but I wasn't having it. This is not a discussion, I told him. I need you home right now. He said he was on his way, but now I feel awful. I made him take a 40-minute journey back home, stressing him out during work hours. But at the same time, I'm desperate to be heard. I listen to him and respect his wishes. Why can't he do the same for me? My husband came home, handed me the keys, and went straight back to work. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was stressed. Now I'm sitting here, feeling guilty but also justified. Was I wrong to make him leave work? Or was this the only way to get through to him? Thank you for listening to these stories. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Please like and subscribe if you want to hear more exciting stories.